Guten Tag. This is episode 5. We're talking about Azure Event Grid, and this is Subscribe. Thank you for tuning in. Today I will talk about Azure Event Grid. Again, this is our series where I'm introducing the products broadly, and in future episodes we're going to go and drill down on particular aspects of, but at the moment initially I'm just going to give you some overviews on the things that we have. So Azure Event Grid is today, and so we'll look at it. Azure Event Grid is our most versatile broker, right? We already looked at Service Bus, we already looked at Event Hubs, which are Q PubSub broker and a streaming engine effectively. And Event Grid is our event broker, as the name says, and it has two integrated but yet separate capabilities. One is it's a full MQTT broker with all the capabilities specified in MQTT 3.1.1 and 5.0, and it's a CloudEvents PubSub event broker. Both of those are put together into a single system, and they are also integrated with each other. And Event Grid can serve as a PubSub system. You can just use it for MQTT. You can just use it for eventing, but you can also use it as a gateway to consolidate data streams and then forward them out into Event Hubs and also into Microsoft Fabric. The first time you will work with Event Grid is probably not by creating an Event Grid entity, but by subscribing, for instance, to the changes of a storage account. On a container, when a file is new created, you will find that there's a kind of a lightning bolt element in the portal. And if you click that and then there's a flyout, and when you go and configure having that notification delivered to you to an endpoint or to an Azure function, you're already using Event Grid. So Event Grid is the backplane for all the eventing that is happening inside of Microsoft Azure. And it's also the backplane for all the eventing that's happening in Microsoft Fabric. So if you have a notification that is being sent because there is a workspace event, then that's all happening through Grid. So that's all neatly integrated into the portal, neatly integrated into the flow of the system. We're talking here about that usage really on the handling side, but also on how you can go and send your own events. So many use cases. One is you can go and build your own event-driven serverless solutions. This combines really well with logic apps, with functions as the target, and then with your own event producers or with whatever webhooks you may have yourself. You can receive events from Azure services. So, most popular case, a file has landed in a storage account and then you want to go and pick it up and do something with it. Learning about when that file is landed, that is a Grid event. Learning when the deployment has finished, that's a Grid event. So there's many services which are raising a family of events, and you can go and subscribe to them and then go and trigger something with those events. Then you can go and receive events from your own applications, super important. So you may want to go and have your own webhook interface. You want to go and notify applications when something happens. But building webhook handling is pretty difficult because you have to deal with, managing the relationships to 1, 2, 3, many 100 different targets. And then if one of those targets doesn't feel well, it gives you a 429 I'm too busy kind of message. Then what are you going to do with it? Are you going to wait? What are you going to do with that message? And all of that management is all built into Event Grid. So Event Grid is taking your message, it's not going to lose it, and it's going to try for a configurable amount of time. And if it can't, then it's going to put that message into a dead letter queue. And then you can also, with the standard capabilities, with the new namespace, you can also receive events at your own pace, which means you don't have to go and use a webhook. You can go and pull them also out of a queue-like structure. And then, of course, MQTT, I mentioned it, ingest IoT telemetry. We're going to get to that in a second. And then with MQTT, you can also do command and control scenarios because MQTT is bidirectional. You can have a producer and a receiver on a device or any client. So if you want to go and create a infrastructure where you have multiple applications, in the hundreds of thousands of clients really, and you want to go and integrate them with each other, then the MQTT capabilities in Event Grid are just what you need. The basic tier is basically all the capabilities that you get by just using Event Grid through the Azure portal or the Azure services as they're built into the other services. So when you are interacting with storage and you're subscribing to the changes in a storage account, then you're using kind of the basic tier. You're subscribing, we're delivering for you, and the charging for this is happening kind of on a per event basis, and there's also a free tier for this. The custom topic is where you go and create one of those topics yourself. Again, you can go and publish messages to an HTTP endpoint. So you can subscribe, and then you can go and send that to a webhook, send that to an Azure function. And so this is very easy to do publish subscribe on this. And then there's more sophisticated constructs like domain topics and partner topics, which I'm going to explain in a future episode in some more detail. Standard tier, you get not in these individual topics, but you get a basically a zoned namespace, as you do in Service Bus and Event Hubs. That allows us to do some encapsulation in terms of networking, which means we can give you more sophisticated networking support like VNet. And inside of that are topics. Those topics are very similar to the ones that you have in the basic tier outside of namespaces from a capability perspective. But you also get the extra pull mode, which means you can go and subscribe, and then you can go and pull out of that subscription, which is very similar to a topic subscription that exists in Service Bus and also has fairly high throughput. In addition, you get the MQTT capabilities. So a topic space is this MQTT namespace. And associated with that are the notions of clients and client groups and certificates and permission bindings that we will also discuss as we go into more detail in MQTT. So standard tier is where you have the namespace, where you have the MQTT capabilities, where you have pull support, and you can go and buy into higher tiers in terms of throughput and the number of clients that are supported. And then basic is basically what you get by using Event Grid as it was built into the platform. So that's purely charged by throughput, and there are some caps on how much you can go and do there. So in more detail, when you subscribe from a Azure service, it goes to Event Grid, and then the push capability allows you to go and send data to function apps or to a webhook or to Azure Event Hubs or to Service Bus or to storage queues. So you can choose the destination, and you can go and define a filter into these incoming events to which event type you want to send, and then you can also filter on the subject of that event. Again, that's all based on the notion of cloud events. Pull delivery is effectively the same mechanism for subscribing, but when you subscribe, you get a queue effectively on that subscription that you can go and pull from. You have private link support, which means you can go and hook into system events using a private link. You can have the events with that delivered into your private isolated environment by pulling them in. And you have control of event states similar to a queue, where you can go and fetch the event, work on it, and then go and remove that event from the queue once you've handled it. I said the MQTT broker is fully conformant with 3.1.1 and 3.5. We have made the choice here to not constrain you in any way on the shape of that MQTT namespace. It gives you any patterns you can realize with MQTT. You can go and subscribe. You can go and subscribe and pull data up into a device. You can publish. You can do fan out, fan in, anything you can do with MQTT, and we're supporting all the features of MQTT 5. Some of them are still in public preview. but we're going to have this rounded out in GA, pretty soon this year. This year we're going to go, and you're going to be completely done with the feature coverage of V5. And you can already do things like, unified namespaces in manufacturing, more Spark B, things that are popular on top of MQTT. And MQTT is also pretty good to reach people on their devices. And then another thing we do, I initially said, we're doing routing, and we're able to go and pull data from Event Grid and route that further. And one of those targets is specifically Microsoft Fabric event streams. So you can use Event Grid effectively as your proxy to collect information, for instance, using MQTT from a large number of devices, and then funnel that into event streams with the built-in capabilities of Event Grid routing into Microsoft Fabric. And that's what I had for you today as an introduction to Event Grid. And as said, we're going to go into more details in future episodes. But thank you for tuning in at this point, and I will hear you very soon.